Good morning and afternoon to some of you, depending on what part of the world you're in. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today we'll be covering how to deliver a unified customer experience when you have multiple partners involved. And who better to lead the conversation than Terri O'Shaughnessy from Tallwave and Andrea Graziani from Duffle. So today we'll be diving into just why the customer experience is so crucial in business today, how customers perceive negative experiences with a partner to actually how that reflects poorly on your own brand. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to align partners around brand vision and purpose. So thank you so much for leading the conversation today.
Yeah.
So before we dive into the nitty gritty, can you guys give us a little bit of background on yourselves?
Sure. I'm Terri O'Shaughnessy. I work at Tallwave. I'm the Director of Client Success. I oversee our market intelligence, user research, and diagnostic programs. I work with some of our largest clients like American Express, Fine Law, Baker Tilly, and a small team of people that help me in all those programs as well.
Great. Well, I'm Andrea Graziani, and I'm one of the co-founders and chief marketing officer at Duffle. This is, I think, my sixth startup. I've lost track. And doing this type of work in marketing and starting companies for the last 20-some years. And most of that was in the tech industry and software. So this is a bit of a diversion to be in the travel industry. Duffle's kind of a unique idea. It's basically something that we built for road warriors because we were road warriors. And we found a way to eliminate a lot of the stress that happens as you're traveling. So with Duffle, you don't have to unpack, do laundry, or drag your bag to the airport or client meetings. We do all of that for you. You send us your stuff, we store it in our warehouse, and when you're ready to pack, you pack on your phone. It takes about 60 seconds, and your clothes meet you at your hotel. So it's a wonderful way to travel. When you're all done, you shove all your dirty stuff back in the bag, put a label on it, and ship it back to us. So it saves our customers about 3 to 5 hours of time per round trip.
Wow. It's just the coolest thing. When I first heard about Duffle, I just geeked out. I was looking all over the website of how it works. How do these guys pull it off? It's so cool.
Yeah, it's great. We've got people with suitcases in a conference room over there, all packed in.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
To see how that
That's very cool. So before we dive into some of the questions that we've got here, this is the chat will be open. So if you've got any questions throughout, just feel free to post them in there, and we'll do our best to answer them during the live stream. So to kind of kick things off, I guess the first question here is, can we maybe give some examples of some brands where they really rely on partners to help deliver that customer experience?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing so much of it now. You hear Uber all the time. So companies like Uber and Lyft, who they've got their in-app experience, which is great, but they rely on other people. They rely on the drivers to actually show up and pick people up and have a clean car and get them to their destination. So that's an example that most people are familiar with. And then even just in the food delivery, you're seeing Postmates and DoorDash and Grubhub, which I love the example of DoorDash because they not only do they have a great in-app experience, but the way that they track the experience, so it's sharing with you, the consumer, as the food order is taken, and then you see that the restaurant has received it and that the driver has picked it up and that it's coming to your house. And when you think of something like that where you've got, you're relying on a restaurant to get the order, fulfill the order, make sure the food's hot, make sure that the food is right, and then you're relying on a driver to pick it up from that restaurant to then make sure they get it and deliver it to the customer while it's still hot and on time and under the expectations that DoorDash has set with their customers. So those are some examples that I think of. And then, obviously, your company is a great example.
We are. I mean, specific to Duffle, we have to rely very heavily on our partner FedEx. And even though we're not technically partnered with the hotels, they're a big piece of the puzzle customers rely on, a great experience, and we're trying to deliver that by relying on a service to get their bag there on time. And, we're using their systems to track the bag as it goes to make sure that it is going to arrive at the hotel on time. And then when the guest arrives at the hotel, what's that experience going to be like? It's not really in our control. We do everything that we can to kind of, help that along. We'll call the hotels in advance and say, hey, there's a suitcase arriving for a customer. I know it's going to go to the package area, but could you let the guest know when he checks in that the bag will be there? And, if it's in a business center, how do they get it? And that kind of thing. So we want it to be the best case experience, but it's a little bit out of our hands. So.
Yeah. And you guys both kind of addressed this, but what are some common areas where breakdowns tend to occur?
So I think that, first of all, you should be prepared for the breakdown to occur anywhere. And really, if you're an existing business, it's really just around tracking that experience and tracking the data and understanding if you're starting to see common themes and where customers are having issues. A great way to find that information out is one, like internally look at your process. Always ask the customers. I mean, they're going to give you the best information, firsthand knowledge on what their experience is and where there may have been, where they felt like maybe they weren't taken care of. Also, if you're just starting out as a company, look at the competition. There's, depending on what you're doing, there's information out there. We could keep thinking about customer experience. I think probably every airline learned something about customer experience through the United situation a couple of weeks ago. Like that's a bad situation, and it was, but it could have been handled completely different, and probably wouldn't have made the news like it did. So I think that breakdowns can occur anywhere, and it's just about being open as an organization to get feedback, and to look at yourself in the mirror and say that we could be doing better, and to always be trying to do better.
I have to agree. And, some for us were obvious in the beginning, the big what ifs. What if the bag doesn't get there? What if it gets lost? Something like that. But, using a service or company like Tallwave that in the beginning walked us through all the pieces, and kind of ad nauseum forced us to think about every single potential problem and how it happens and what happens on the customer side, what happens on our warehouse side, what happens on our customer service side of the house. So there are a lot of different things to think about, and I think we did a decent job. I mean, customer service is the front porch of any company, right? So, we wanted to make sure that people could trust us and have a really good experience. Something as important as making sure that your business clothes get there for your business. So we did a lot in advance. We do everything we can by utilizing the technology we have available to us to track bags and coming up with contingency plans that make people feel comfortable if something doesn't get there on time. But there's always going to be a little glitch here and there or breakdown that you don't foresee. And I think to your point, it's really how you handle it that makes a difference.
Well, and I think if I can just add to that a little bit, it's, we do bring people through those workshops, and sometimes, it can be like, oh, why are we asking the same question over and over? But, I'm getting my kitchen remodeled right now. You guys have never gone through that, but, as the company who's doing it, it's really easy for them to say, our responsibility is to, once somebody contacts us, to be, to respond to the call or to the email, however it comes in, provide a fair quote, that's part of their process, provide the information that's needed to have the best kitchen design ever. And then, you go through these stages of like the demo and then, electricians and all of this stuff. And so if they're only looking at the process from that standpoint, they could be patting themselves on the back. Look at this, we gave a fair quote, we won the business, we demoed the kitchen, and now at the end, this person has this beautiful kitchen. But what they may not realize is that during that experience, I was on my side, living out of a cooler and a microwave, and every time, if they called and said, are somebody's a day behind or an hour late, they may say, well, that falls within the guidelines of our business, and it does. But if they teach that emotional intelligence to the people that are working in their business to understand, like, it's not about that sometimes. You can be delivering perfect. It's about who is the person on the other side and how do we communicate with them, because they've got a whole lot of other stuff that they're experiencing that's outside of those touch points with your organization. So I just think it's that, understand the basics, understand how your business serves, but then teaching your people how to handle a situation, an angry customer, even though it would be really easy to be like, this is what we do, we're on time, we're good. Stop and say, how are they feeling right now? And you'll treat them different, and the experience will be better because problems happen. So
yeah, it's all those little touch points and what the construction crew, if they've left behind a mess or their lunch from earlier in the day, it all impacts how you perceive that experience.
Yeah, and it's and in their minds they could be thinking, man, we nail it every time. So
you're totally right, and you have to have that perspective from the customer too. You mentioned it earlier, but we survey our customers all the time, and we kind of developed this really, I hope, open door policy. We have 24/7 support teams, so you never feel like there's a problem, you don't have anybody to talk to. But we survey our users all the time, and in my experience over how many companies, this is the most feedback we've ever gotten from customers. They love to tell us how it went, usually positive. Sometimes they'll bring up little points where we say, oh yeah, that would be better. And then, we really take that constructive criticism, to heart, and in many cases develop the product based on that. So that's a nice place to be.
And it allows, you'd rather ask your customer and have them share with you than learn the hard way, whether it's through a review or some type of rating. When we talked a couple weeks ago, we talked about the airlines. Like when if I have a flight booked from Phoenix to Salt Lake City to Minneapolis, when I land in Minneapolis, somebody's always like, how was your flight? And if there was not an issue, it's like, good. But, if there's an issue in my flight here, which is going to cause me to miss my flight in Salt Lake City, which means I'm not getting to Minneapolis, it's a problem. And it's a problem that's oftentimes out of the control of the airlines. It's a weather issue or maintenance issue. Like they're definitely not trying to delay flights, but it's how that gets handled, which is how the story is told on the other side of that trip. So you're either landing in Minneapolis and somebody asks, and it was great. I actually had a delayed flight in Phoenix, and because of that delay, I was going to miss my flight in Salt Lake City. But American Airlines handled it great. They got me up to first class. They put me on a different flight. I arrived an hour earlier than I had planned. That was a problem that turned into a great situation, and it has before. It has. I think both sides of it have happened, and then the same thing. And they did nothing, and I ended up in Salt Lake City and missed my flight and got put up in a hotel with a toothbrush, and so people want to talk about their experience. So one, you could let them talk about it on Yelp, or you could ask them regularly what their experience is and have them give you feedback, and you're improving, and then you're closing that loop with them and letting them know that what they say is valuable. And so even when problems do occur, if you're proactive, it's really helpful.
That's right. I mean, we always say, things are going to happen. How do you handle it? That makes all the difference. And I know that's what you're saying, but I kind of use the example. Well, what happens to you? Because the biggest question: what happens if my bag doesn't get there? What happens when the airline misses your bag? Nothing. And you wait, and you get it when you get it. And we're going to proactively make sure that doesn't happen. Usually we can tell before bags, you've even left for your trip if a bag has a potential delay, we'll call you and give you, 3 contingency plans on how we can get your clothes there on time for you, or reimburse you if you have to run out and buy something, or there's a lot of different ways that we handle it because 20 years of traveling myself, I don't want to be left without a bag, and would hope that somebody would care. And we certainly want our customers to feel like we do.
Mm-hmm. We got a great question kind of along these lines in the chat. Paul asked, what are some of the world-class companies doing to monitor customer experience and collect data about the experience their customers are having? So I would imagine a little bit of that feedback loop, but are there any examples that you know of, or maybe ways that you work with clients on setting this up?
So there's a couple different ways, and it really just depends on your organization. There's surveying. I am such a huge fan of just regularly asking your customers, how did we deliver, whether, and it's finding that balance between asking too much and asking often enough, but that's always the case. But just asking, how was your service? You hear companies talk about NPS scores, which is Net Promoter Score, and with that and with just surveys in general, I think something that's important is when you are getting that feedback, are you listening? Are you changing the way that you do things? And then are you closing the loop? Like, are you going back to that customer and saying, we heard what you said and we value the information you gave us, and we're going to be better because of that. And do you feel that if we had done this with you, that your experience would be better? So that's a case where it's where an experience isn't necessarily like all app, for example, like what Duffle does. But then and I'm going to use DoorDash as an example again. DoorDash can track based on the experience that they're providing. So they tell you as a customer that your order's been processed. They tell you when it's been the restaurant received it. They tell you when the drivers picked it up, and then they tell you when the driver's basically at your door. So if they've set benchmarks and parameters on what that experience should look like, their data should be, and I don't work for DoorDash, I'm only assuming that they're using that information to track and say, this restaurant, it took them way longer than what we want it to take for something to get done. Or they know because they're tracking it on a map, that driver made a stop or something, in between there. And then the other thing that I love about their experience is then once the food's arrived, they send you a text to rate your experience. And so right then they're saying, we care. How was it? And and it's easy. It's a 1 to 5, and you're answering the question. So they have, for every single delivery that goes out, they have data around that experience. So to answer how world-class organizations are tracking it, I think everybody's got their own method, but to be a world-class organization, you have to have something in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we do that, the notifications, you're nervous, are my clothes going to get there on time? Where are they? So you're notified that your order's been received, that we're processing it, that it's left the warehouse, or that it's arrived at your hotel. So we hope that you're always aware of where it is. We're working on enhancing that so that if you really wanted to see, okay, it's on a truck in Memphis, you could see that if you wanted. So those are little enhancements that we're working on there. But with our surveys, our NPS score is actually something we're really proud of. It's at 80 right now, which in the travel industry, hovers in the high 20s, low 30s. So I think we're doing okay, but we're always looking for ways to do better, and that's the kind of information we want from our customers to help us improve.
I'm so curious too, how you go about identifying those potential friction points before you even launch. And I know that a lot of them will come after the launch, but how do you walk through that process?
So this will probably go a little bit back to the workshops that we do. So at Tallwave, we offer several different types of workshops to help our customers through this process. And you can do customer journey mapping where you're identifying every touch point that customer has with your organization, how that might be affecting their mood, and just looking at it from every aspect of the business, from the start of the engagement to the end of the engagement. And so I think that's extremely valuable. Identifying who your personas are, what types of things they may have going on in their life, how they reached you, what their expectations were, what type of expectations can you deliver. So I think that's a general view. You can also, like I said about the kitchen thing, if you want to take it like one step further, it's just really starting to talk about the experience outside of your touch points and just having real conversations about it. We're working with a company right now that is, their clients range from very small law firms to people to these large organizations. Well, the experience is going to be different for those two types of people. So you can't always treat it the same. You have to have everybody in mind when you go through that journey. Also, we do service blueprinting, where you start to look at your business from every aspect, from systems you're using, who's participating, what are critical, what are like some critical points in the process, what are problems, what are solutions, like really digging into it. And we do these often, and I've been doing customer experience work for 10 years. You can at a high level say, like, anytime there's handoff, that is a risk for problems. That it's from dropping something, FedEx dropping off to the hotel, how is it being tracked? Whose hands is it in now? So just being able to, it's really that diagnostic, like looking at every part of your business to the point of exhaustion. Like you really do have to dig in and be open to listen to not only the stuff that you're teaching yourself through the process, but then, we give a lot of feedback to our clients on areas that they can improve and changes they can make and things they should consider. And, at the end of the day, it's their decision, what they're going to do with it. But it's really just about that, like diagnosing your own business and potential issues.
And I was smiling because I think we did the journey mapping exercise. So we come up with this idea and we think we have it all thought out. We come here, we're working on the app, and we get locked in this giant conference room with a million Post-it notes that we're sticking on the wall as we're looking at the journey of the service from start to finish, from every participant's viewpoint. And you really, it's something you don't. I don't think, maybe it's just me, but nobody wants to do that. You don't want to think about every single piece of it. I mean, it was literally, okay, what happens when they order it? And then what happens in the warehouse? And then what happens when they pack the bag? And then what happens, and you're like, come on,
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, it was a huge eye-opener. And even though it was, this isn't our first rodeo, we learned so much. And I think we probably headed off a bunch of potential problems because we spent the time going through that exercise.
Yeah, it makes for an exhausting day, that's for sure.
It is.
But worth it, yeah.
And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but it's unfortunately you often don't perceive an experience as good unless something goes wrong, and then they problem solve for that. So is there a way that you can create some of those trigger points where they walk away just feeling that was such an amazing experience without a problem having occurred?
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, it's kind of funny. We always talk about the wow factor. We're probably unique because this isn't something that's been done before. So it's kind of compare it a little bit to your first experience when you took an Uber. Oh my gosh, this is great. I don't have to have cash. I don't have to argue with them if they have a credit card machine. It doesn't sound. I don't have to give a tip. I just got in, I got out. It was great. So when people use our service, we want them to just get to the hotel, open that bag, and go, this is great. Because, we try to make it a white glove service. The bag looks almost like a present when you open it up. I can promise you I don't pack my clothes that way when I'm on my own. So, but, everything's wrapped in tissue, and there's a little gift in the bag, and we're checking to see if it's going to rain where you're going, and we'll put an umbrella in the bag. All those little touches that I think really help to make it a good experience. And then, like you say, following up to make sure everything's on time and you're happy, and we've got your stuff back in our house again, and we hope everything was great. And I think we're lucky in the way that people do find it an amazing experience, and they're happy to tell us about it, and happy to tell us if it wasn't. And then we know we have work to do. But
yeah, I think that you nailed it just with the wow factor. It's like kind of knowing that status quo is that's people are busy, and the expectation is that it works. That is the expectation you as an organization set. So you really can't expect them to think that it was this exceptional experience when it was just what it was supposed to be. So it's not wrong on the customer's part that they don't think of the experience. Like, that's great sometimes. Like, it was so little of a experience that, because it just went as planned. But if you want it, it's about wowing them. It's about, like, nothing makes me feel better than when I go to Starbucks and I've got the free coffee, whatever it is on your app. Like, and I know that the reason I have it is because I, have received so many coffees. It's something they don't have to do, but they do it, and it makes you feel good. And it's just, it's just adding those little things, having just a little something special in the bag when they arrive, and everybody. There's not an organization that can't do that. Like, so, that's, it's just thinking, what is something that would make me feel really, really good? And it might just be that phone call. It might be a 10% off your next purchase. It could be something so simple that will turn it into a great experience.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we've got travelers from all walks of life, but, we have entertainers and sports figures and celebrities and CEOs and captains of industry, and we put this item in the bag every time. It's kind of like a sample item, like a Birchbox sort of a thing, but not really. We'll put a little gift in the bag. We call it Duffle bits, and it could be a kind bar, it could be a protein bar, it could be Kevin Murphy hair products or a pair of socks or something cool. And we're like, do these people really care about this little gift? They care, and we love that they care. And we thought, how much do they care? And we get back surveys that say, how was your trip? Could have been better. And we're like, oh no, what happened? And then the next comment is, I left my Duffle bits item in the bag and I'm really bummed. I wanted it. So we'll send it to them, but it's cool to see that it doesn't matter who you are or what you have. It's so nice to get a little something that you didn't ask for from time to time,
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think of, I went to Vegas one time, and I was staying at Caesar's Palace, and their only responsibility is like check me in, make sure there's a room available. And I drove this. I was living in San Diego at the time, and it was the worst storm that I mean, it was raining so hard, and I was so nervous, and I had to be there. And when I got there, the lady at the front desk asked me, how's your trip? Like, at this point, she doesn't know, did I drive? Did I fly? And I was like, oh, I'm just so glad to be here. The weather, I drove here and the weather was horrible. So, she checks me in, gives me my key, sends me to my room. About an hour later, they delivered to my room a bottle of champagne and a gift card to the spa that said,
wow.
For a massage. And I was like, I am always going to stay here. Like, that was, and it was, I loved that because it was outside. It's nothing they did. But they just, I mean, I probably was like still sweating and right when I got in there, but, it was just a gesture that, for them, it's really costed nothing. Mm-hmm. But to me, it was like the best thing that they could have done. So, it's just small things like that. I always talk about emotional intelligence. It's just like teaching your people to know when to do the right things, when to go above and beyond, and how to think about those
Do you think that it's possible to extend that to partners too, just as you would train an employee to maybe extend that to partners at the restaurant? Maybe they can include something extra in the order or something like that.
I think so. I think it has to, when you're using partners in your own experience, it has to be mutually beneficial. So, like in the case of, like the restaurants, they're getting more business because it's now more convenient to get their food out. The drivers are making money. DoorDash is taking a percentage, but I think that I don't think that DoorDash, for example, can't tell their partners what to do, but I think that they can share ideas. They can have those conversations with their partners and say, one, if the experience is bad, if there's an issue, they have to have a conversation. But maybe if they're, seeing something, exceptional on their part, they can either reward that restaurant or they can share ideas like things that the restaurant can do as little bonuses to say, maybe it's even like a DoorDash, but like a coupon for taking into the store or something like that. But there's lots of options out there.
Yeah, I think so too. And obviously you don't have control over that partner or vendor that you're using, but we speak very highly of FedEx. Their reputation speaks for itself, and because they have a 99% on-time delivery rate, that reflects very well on us, and it lends credibility to what we do. And I think that people feel comfortable because we're using that service and we have the ability to know where everything is at all times. So we're always talking very favorably about FedEx. I don't know if they care about our feedback, but our customers love them. And when we have a hotel that is above and beyond for a customer, they like it, they tell us too. And oftentimes customers will call and say, "Do you have any recommendations for the hotel?" And they can say, "Yeah, our customers tell us this is a great place to stay." So I think there's a lot of back and forth that can be had in all situations.
Even if you think of the relationship between Duffle and Tallwave, we every time we're talking about customer experience, we're talking about Duffle. We're sharing, what you guys do, and I know that you guys are out there sharing your experience with so it's taking care of each other. It's making sure that like we loved working with them, they loved working with us. We talk about it, we promote each other's the services, and that sometimes in itself can be it's a win for everyone.
Yeah, like in the example of DoorDash, it's that restaurant too also has something on the line by partnering with DoorDash. Because it could be perceived as the restaurant's issue too, even if it was DoorDash.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, and even with the different drivers, and that's why since DoorDash is the one that brought those partnerships together, tracking it and making sure like if there's a driver that's not getting the job done and it's reflecting poorly on DoorDash as a company and that restaurant, DoorDash has to step in to protect the reputation of both. Or if a restaurant's not getting the job done, and the same goes back with holding DoorDash accountable for their service.
We did get another question in the chat. It's kind of a two-parter, so I'll break it up. The first part just talks about do you recommend incentivizing customers for kind of talking about your product or talking it up, even if it just did the job that it was supposed to, if there was no surprise and delight element there?
So maybe let me see if I understand the question. So incentivizing them to give good reviews, or incentivizing them to talk about you in the market
program.
I think for just getting it out there, just talking about it.
So I personally, like, this is my opinion, I would say no, because then you're not getting true feedback. You're not growing. You're not. You want to make sure that person's talking about their experience because they had a great experience. Like if they're talking about a great experience because I'm getting something, then what am I as an organization learning from that? And I could also be setting up, if this person's out promoting me and somebody comes to my business with an expectation of great service and I don't deliver, then it's even worse. So I'm sure there's cases where there could be an incentive, but I would be hesitant to do that. I want, I would want real feedback, and I would want real conversations to be taking place.
Yeah, it's interesting because we had a little experiment ourselves. For a long time, we didn't have a referral program, and almost all of a good chunk of our customers would still tell us, "Oh, I told such and such about you, and I saw someone on the plane, I told them about you," and then we implemented a referral, incentive program, and after looking at the data, like less than 1% of our customers took advantage of it, and we're still willing to talk about us, and not just in a small way. I mean, we have customers that write in and said, "Hey, I added, I tagged you guys in a comment in an article I read. I hope you get some customers out of it." And we did, and that was really cool. And sometimes we'll call them and say, "Hey, would you be willing to talk to a reporter about us?" And every time the answer is yes. So that to me is amazing, and it tells me we're doing something right. So we have to keep that up, but it certainly wasn't, didn't happen because of that referral program.
Yeah, and I think that, I guess I probably wasn't thinking as much like referral, because I think there are businesses where a referral might work, Uber, for example. I think when you first signed up, like if you got a couple people else to sign up, you get a little bit off your next ride. So that wasn't even as much about sharing the experience. It was more, because I think that organic referral or that organic conversation is just so much better. It's not an email saying ask 5 of your friends to do this, but I think that there can, like I see stuff. I know that there's like people get incentivized to like write reviews on Yelp and write reviews on Amazon, and from my perspective, that takes away the value of those reviews. When I know that there's some of them mixed in there, typically the highest reviews that aren't real. And then you're like, this is, I question the integrity of the entire program, knowing that there's some out there that are doing that, and especially like with those ratings, like people are going there because they care, they're about to make an investment, and I just don't think it speaks well for to like pay for a review. So, but a referral is a little bit different, like, and depending on your business. But
and the second part of this question I thought was really interesting. How do you balance kind of creating that amazing experience and that element of surprise and delight? When you're doing that, do you run the risk of eventually kind of reaching that point where you can't sustain it any longer? Will it ratchet up their expectations to a point where you can't any longer delight beyond that?
Yeah,
like in the instance of Duffle bits, when they get used to that, do you have to then go a step further? And
you're smart. You already know what the next step is. I think. So we do. We have a plan. That's the way that those things will go as we grow. But I think there's always, maybe it's just this particular business, there's always something we can do a little bit better, or maybe there's a better way to enhance that wow factor, and we're constantly trying to be strategic. And I think that's a lot of where the customer feedback comes into play. It's like, oh, nice to have. And in the case of what we're doing, we already know what we would want when we're on the road. So it makes it a little bit easier because I've already been that customer, and I know, I wish we could teleport people to where they need to go, because if they could eliminate that whole stress of air travel, then I think things would be a lot better. To answer your question, yeah, I think you could probably max out. I mean, you don't want to go over the top and then not be able to sustain, so you have to be reasonable in what you're doing.
So I agree with that. I think that when you make a decision to do something as a bonus or an extra, or that extra wow, the second you make that the norm, you're committed to it. And then people are going to open their suitcase or whatever it is, and then it actually becomes a negative if something's not in there. So I think really understanding what your goal is when you do those extra things, if they just randomly receive it, that makes it a great experience when they get it, and it just makes it the expected experience when they don't get it. And then, like I don't expect Starbucks to give me a free coffee every time I use my app. Like I know that I'm excited every time I see it. And so, I think you have to be careful to understand what are you delivering? What is the experience? What is getting someone from A to B and having it be, that status quo. And then being able to randomly do things to make the experience better. And then, I tell people a lot of times, if you think of like a customer's experience in red, yellow, and green, and red being like they're an unhappy customer, like don't try to take from red to green, because if you're doing that, sometimes what's happening is you're throwing all of your resources at it. You're doing everything that you can, and so they're kind of skipping that phase where they're feeling like, okay, I feel good, I'm not mad anymore, but you've gone so above and beyond what you normally do to get them out of the red, as far as that relationship goes, that the second you back off, that customer doesn't go to yellow. They don't go to neutral. They go right back to red. And then you get this really ugly, routine of like, they're mad, we spoil them, we go back to normal, they're mad. And so understanding also when you do come across issues, looking at a customer where there's been a problem and saying, and being okay saying, this is on them. This we could have done better. This we could have done better. And making true process changes to fix it so that it doesn't occur again. And just hope that you can take that customer that next place to the yellow. And then where you're, if it's somebody that you're working with regularly, and now they're going to see consistency. They're going to say, okay, they fixed that process. And now I'm seeing that this behavior is consistently good. And you as an organization, you're calling them saying, are you feeling, we heard you and we've made this change. Are you feeling it? Like, can you tell things have changed? And after a bit of time in that consistent stage, then they may become a green customer again. And it's because you're delivering, and then those little perks and bonuses are just add-ons. But you have to be careful, because trying to make something so great can actually have really negative effects if it's not built into a process and you haven't really fixed the core of the problem. So
that makes sense. And then I was curious with Duffle, since really there had not been anything before you guys for you to kind of jump off of and experience to work from. So how did you go about building in those elements of surprise and delight when it was a blank slate?
Well, some of the things just happened as, we're trying them out. The first time we packed a bag, we thought, well, this looks good. And then, it would look nicer if we lined the bag with tissue, or it would be great if we folded the shirts this way. And then, our CEO is the one that came up with the idea to put the umbrella in the bag. So all of these things have just kind of happened along the way. But it's really, I think in everything that we do, we kind of use the perspective, what would I want as a customer and as somebody who, we use the service. So we, have our own feedback. Gosh, I wish, all my shoes were in this section of the bag, or I wish that, the gift stood out more, or the comment card was bigger, all the little tiny improvements that you can make. I think that it was just really this whole notion of how can we make travel better. And usually the people that are on the road, those road warriors, are the kind of people that are taking care of everybody else. So we kind of use the mindset of let us take care of you for once. The little tag we put on the umbrella says it looks like rain, don't catch cold. And it's just, we want them to feel like somebody's watching out for them. They don't have to go home, and even though they've been on the road for 10 days or 5 days or whatever it is, and they want to see their kids, they know, shoot, I've got laundry and get this bag unpacked and move in before I can talk to you. So that's really the angle that we came at the whole business.
Very cool. And so was some of that outlined prior to launch, and then other things came as you've learned more?
Well, I think that prior to launch, and I've mentioned this before, but Tallwave really helped us with, all right, this should happen here, and this should happen here, and we kind of knew what we wanted. But in going through those exercises with them, we found along the way, oh, we can make an improvement here and here and here and here. And then, when we went to execute on those things, I don't think we really had any changes in the app itself. But there were things like I mentioned, like how does the bag get packed? What are the labels going to look like on the handles? What's the process for, picking up the bag or requesting a pickup? And what do we want the customer to see in the app? So, one of the things was we take pictures of your clothes. Your closet lives on your phone. So, we know people have this separation anxiety with their clothes now, right? I don't want to give you my blouse, if I want to wear that blouse. And so we kind of, do some fun stuff, but don't worry, we're taking great care of your clothes. They just had a photo shoot. You're going to be able to see them soon. And, you go into your closet and if that's how you're going to see your clothes from now on is in this picture, that picture needs to be great. So we spent, a crazy amount of time. None of us were professional folders or packers or anything like that. And we're like, all right, let's set up this photo booth and we make this a great experience for the customer who probably doesn't give it a second thought, but we're making sure that every shirt's folded uniformly and it looks perfect and your shoes look good. And, we spent a ton of time doing the little tiny things like that to make it a good, trusting, you feel like you have trust in the service and your things are being taken care of, and that's what we wanted. And that's really, when we get feedback, that's always at the top of the list. You take such great care of my things. I wish I had a cleaner like yours where I lived, and thanks for putting the button back on my shirt, or all the little tiny things. So
I love the idea too of like not really overpacking, when you get somewhere and you're like, wow, I lot of stuff in here for one business, for overnight in one business.
Well, to
keep it in control.
And when you took a carry-on before, because I would never check the bag when I traveled, but I'm like, yes, I'll leave these shoes here, or I can't take these jeans even though I want them. And now, I've kind of considered a little behavioral experiment, but we know that most of our travelers stay about 3 nights when they travel, and they take our medium-sized bag. We have 3 sizes of bags, and it doesn't matter how much you pack, it's still the same price. It's $99 round trip, and that includes all the cleaning and everything. So if I'm used to packing in a carry-on, people started out packing that amount of clothes from the app. And as time went on, we see the number of items they pack go up because it doesn't matter. I have, a bag that's 29 inches high and I can fit 150 items in it. I'll take 4 pair of shoes and 3 jackets, and I can take whatever I want. So
now that's curious.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've talked a lot about how you kind of identify these friction points, but how do you create alignment amongst your partners from the get-go? Is it about having conversations with them prior to, or how do you go about? Is it a vetting process?
Yeah, well, we thought about it in the beginning, and of course, you have to consider cost and reliability and all of those things. And of course, I'm speaking about FedEx and our customer service. The head of our customer service team was one of the people that started the same day FedEx support desk. So it was kind of logical for us to think, all right, well, we know this works and we're really familiar with the system, and we had many conversations with the teams at FedEx and, competitors, and decided that, after talking to them, they were willing to work with us. They were willing to do things that maybe weren't, normal for delivery and pickup schedules, and kind of bent over backwards to make sure that the model would work. And so it was an easy decision for us to pick them as a partner, but absolutely had those conversations up front as we're trying to decide how we do this the best way possible.
Yeah, and I think it's setting clear expectations with your partners, no different than you set those expectations with your customers. Because, as I've mentioned before, it's got to benefit everyone. Everybody. If you're asking someone to participate in something with you to benefit your business, they're going to naturally ask, how is this going to benefit mine? So I think that having conversations up front about, what the service looks like, what the expectations are on both parts. And, I think just with any business relationship, like just having a conversation and being really clear about the goals, the overall goals of the organization, and staying aligned. So if I'm seeing, if I'm doing a review of my experience and I find that I have to make some changes, you have to bring your partners into those changes as well. They've got to understand that you're making some adjustments to a process and how that might impact their business. Because they might say, I can't do this anymore. You're telling me that, I've got to do something that's now outside of my comfort zone. And so you have to set that up beforehand so that they have an option to say, I'm not your right partner anymore.
We had that experience when we were picking a dry cleaner to use. We do some laundry in-house, but we also send it out, so we had to make sure we had the quality and the turnaround time. I mean, for us, everything's about speed and efficiency. So we talked to 20 different cleaners in the valley, and which one could accommodate and which one could work with us. And there were plenty that said, sorry, we can't do that, or no, we don't do pickups, or no, we're not willing to do that. And then we, found one that said, absolutely, we'll hire X amount of people to support you, and we'll make sure that we do this, this, and this. And, they've been very flexible with us and adjusting as we adjust. So it's really important. And we certainly don't want to have to stop in the middle and find a new partner. So it's important to vet that out in the beginning.
Yeah, if you can't roll out a new process with them, you're not ready to roll out the new process. So you've got to make sure that everybody's on board and willing to work with those partners.
That makes sense. Well, that puts us almost at our hour. So thank you everyone for joining and for the great questions and chats. And thank you both for sharing your insights. If folks want to connect or follow anything you're putting out, are there social channels or a way for them to reach you?
So I'm Terri Ocean on Twitter and Terri O'Shaughnessy on LinkedIn. And I'm sure we can even post some of that
we'll
stuff.
Put some links in the notes.
My last name's not that easy, so yours either.
No, but my email address is a little bit easier. It's just a@duffle.com. So it's DUFL.com. And we've got some great videos on our site. If you have questions, or we're at Duffle on Twitter. So I'd love to hear from you if you have questions. Feel free to email me.
Yeah, and then Tallwave as well. So TALLW.
Perfect. We'll put all of those links in the notes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.